How can small market teams like New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles compete with the big bullies from Cincinnati, Cleveland, Milwaukee, and San Diego? Baseball just isn't fair.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter, or whatever they're calling it these days, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And the best way to get a hold of me is right here on the YouTube page, and leave the comments below. I read them all, even the ones that are mean. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Let's quickly take a look at who owned baseball yesterday. ENERGYTee got a pair of hits, including a key two-run home run to help the Astros top Boston 4-1. Hunter Green kept Cincinnati's playoffs hopes alive through 6 shutout innings to beat the Phillies. And Sanchez, 8-0. We'll talk about Cincy pretty soon. Jacob Marcy drove in 7 runs, including with 2 home runs. The Marlins slug past Cleveland. We'll talk about Cleveland a little bit later. And Trevor Rogers held Seattle to 1 run over 7 innings, setting up the Orioles' 4-3 walk-off win. Half wobs onto Brian Reynolds, who homered twice for the Pirates. Vinny Pasquantino, who doubled and homered for the Royals, but they lost to the Nats. Kevin Gausman pitched well for Toronto, but the Cubs took that game. And Paul Blackburn basically saved the Mets bullpen with 5 innings of relief. But boy, oh boy, the Mets just took the gas pipe there. We're talking about a lot of those teams and some of the things that are happening in a bit. The trivia question was, in the year that McGwire and Sosa had their great home run chase of 1998, neither McGwire nor Sosa cracked the top 3 of National League WAR that year. Sosa didn't crack the top 10. Who were the 3 leaders of National League WAR? And Joshua Nickel, 7643, got it right. They were Barry Bonds, John Olerud, and Kevin Brown. Kevin Brown had an unbelievable year for the San Diego Padres that year. Barry Bonds he was Barry Bonds. He was skinny Barry Bonds back then. I'm a little surprised Olerud was there, quite frankly. But hey, Olerud was a terrific player for the Mets. They could use him right now. Go Cougs. I'm going to talk in a later episode about that year, 1998, and war. If we had known about war back then, something may have changed in baseball history. The first big battle over war, in terms of it being in the national spotlight as a stat, I believe, was in 2012 when Miguel Cabrera won the American League Triple Crown. Batting average, home runs, runs batted in. First Triple Crown since Carl Yastrzemski in 1967. And yet there was a debate. Was he the most valuable player? Well, in past years, it would have been unanimous. But the debate was real, as rookie Mike Trout had a higher WAR and a better overall season. Now, in the end, Trout won Rookie of the Year, Miguel Cabrera won the MVP, and Trout's won a bunch of MVPs, and no one's weeping for Trout. But it was the first time that debate came to the front and sort of made some people start to evaluate an overall season. And I just wonder, if that debate had happened in 1998, with everyone going bananas for Sosa and McGwire, and the stat people coming up and saying, actually, Bonds is a better player, that maybe Bonds' bitterness, say that 3 times fast, would have been, I don't know, not as strong about all the attention that was given to Sosa and McGwire. And maybe he wouldn't have ballooned up. And maybe he'd be in the Hall of Fame. I don't know. I'm going to break that down in a later episode, but it was something that struck me the other day. All right, well, a listener, Olivie3339, wrote to me, Dodgers better hope the Reds don't catch fire. And that's interesting because the Dodgers, well, we'll talk about them in a little bit, but they may be a wild card team. And the Reds may be a wild card team. This is the world we're living in. You could see a wild card matchup of the Reds and the Dodgers. And the Reds are kind of scary. Well, for the last 2 months, the Reds have been 20-17. That's not bad, but it doesn't exactly evoke memories of the Big Red Machine. They've won 12 of their last 20, including last night where they beat Christopher Sanchez, who, by the way, is having a terrific year for the Phillies. And Hunter Green pitched great, and Andujar homered. But the Mets had another debacle. They had a big lead early, then they put up a 9 spot. The Braves put up a 9 spot, including a Michael Harris' second, not the first, but the second grand slam. The Mets pitching has been an absolute train wreck. And right now, as I'm recording this, only one game separates the Reds from the Mets, and the Reds are playing. They could be a half game out by the time tomorrow kicks around. And, take a look at some of the pitching that the Reds have gotten recently. Singer's pitched well. Hunter obviously pitched great. The two Knicks, Lodolo and Martinez, can do a good job. And Francona has been here and done that. And he's been on the other end of this, too. Remember, he was the manager in 2011 when the horrific collapse by the Boston Red Sox was predicated by the fact that their starting pitching fell apart. Lackey, Lester, Beckett, Wakefield. I love you, Wakefield, but, it was a disastrous final month of the season. The famous fried chicken and beer brigade. A bug just landed on my nose. And when you have uncertain starting pitching, that's the best way to see a slump prolong. I mean, Blackburn came out and pitched 5 innings out of basically necessity because the bullpen is gassed, because the starters can't go deep. And it goes on. I don't know why she swallowed that fly. I suspect she'll die. It's all part of the same thing. If starters aren't going deep, the bullpen's gassed. The starters are going much deeper for Cincinnati. And there's panic sitting in New York. The Mets could be out of a playoff spot by this weekend. And the team with a better pitching staff and no pressure on them could be ahead of them. I can't help but think about the fact that the Reds lost all those 1-0 games early in the season. I told you then those could come back to haunt them. And if they miss the playoffs by a game or so, you'll remember those 1-0 games. But there's about 40 games. Actually, there's 40 games left for Cincinnati. If they play 2 games better than the Mets over 40 games, they'll leapfrog them. And suddenly there's a early September series between the Mets and the Reds that suddenly looms very, very large. I bet you didn't think that a couple of months ago, that you'd be circling Reds-Mets thinking, oh boy, this is a showdown. Most people can't name their financial accounts or what they're even worth. Whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments, if you have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface. On your laptop or on your phone, Monarch Money does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data, visuals, and get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without even touching a spreadsheet. And I've linked all my accounts to Monarch, and I found some subscriptions I wasn't even using. That's like throwing money away. Canceling those, saving money every single month. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONMLB. All right, meanwhile, elsewhere in Ohio, remember how the Guardians were supposed to be sellers at the trade deadline? Now, they did send Bieber to the Blue Jays, but he hasn't pitched yet. And they decided to keep Kwan in Class A. And Kwan has slumped badly the last couple of weeks, and Class A hasn't pitched in August yet. So naturally, the Guardians are within one game of the Yankees for the final wild card spot, because nothing in this world makes sense anymore. Now, I thought the Rangers were going to be the team that was going to give the Yankees the most fits for that final wild card spot, but it's looking more and more like the Guardians. If the Guardians can pull off a win today against the Miami Marlins, then guess what? They'll be only a half a game behind the New York Yankees for that final spot. And the Yankees, who has shown they don't know how to deal with a bullpen. I mean, yesterday Boone did a horrific job, and he used all the wrong people again. And they won that series against Minnesota, but they have to start sweeping series if the Yankees want to, make the playoffs, which no one thought was going to be the issue at the beginning of the year. If you have a chance to knock someone out, they have to give themselves a little bit of wiggle room. And having a game where, Schlittler, you got to be careful how to say his name. Schlittler was pitching, and he pitched great, and so they lifted him after 5 innings and brought in De Los Santos, and it became a disaster. You take a look at the Cleveland right now. Last year, they were a hit here or a hit there from getting to Game 6 of the ALCS last year. And they somehow have zero pressure on them. Nobody's expecting them to do anything. As I said, this was a team that was going to be, that was supposed to be selling at the deadline. There's no pressure on them whatsoever. And when you have a team like that, and you also have a team like the Yankees where there's nothing but pressure on every single game. Hell, there's pressure on them to sweep series, not just to take 2 out of 3. You're going to see a team like Cleveland, with nothing really much to lose, take advantage of some of this. And you're also going to see teams who are a little tired of being punching bags. I can't help but think that one of the things that sparked the Twins last night, despite the fact that Boone can't, along with the fact that Boone can't manage a bullpen, is that they were tired of being punching bags. All they kept hearing is, the Yankees have won the last 9 games or 15 out of 20 or whatnot. And it's okay, the Twins, they always beat up the Twins. Maybe they were like, we're tired of this. There's an emotion behind some of this. And keep in mind when people talk about strength of schedule as if there's an easy path to the playoffs. The Angels just swept the series with the Dodgers. And I'll get a little bit, the final segment we'll talk a little bit about the NL West. But yeah, sometimes a team gets up for this. The Cardinals were sneaking back into the wild card race. Bit by bit, they were sneaking back into it. And they had a series against the Rockies. And they're thinking, okay, here we go. Here's 3 easy wins right here. The Rockies are coming into town. We're going to clobber them. The Rockies won the series. Freeland did a great job, and they wound up getting some big hits the other day. And I guarantee you, as the Cardinals had crept within just a couple of games of that final wild card spot, and the Cardinal fans were seeing that the Mets were taking the gas pipe to Atlanta, that they were salivating. Oh, man, and we got Colorado. Those are easy wins. But they weren't. And that becomes one of the great things about stretch time. Stretch time means for some of these teams, there's about 40 games left. There are fewer games left in this season than they played in the COVID year. Okay? So with 40 games left, a lot of things can happen. And a lot of things can be magnified. And for some of these teams, this is a chance to say, well, this is our last gasp of doing something resembling meaningful baseball in the year 2025. And if you look at the teams that are pressing, that's when they make bad decisions. That's when you're gripping the bat too tight, when you're swinging too much, you're being a little desperate, you're trying to overthrow that pitch. I remember the 2011 season. I remember how the Red Sox were collapsing down the stretch. And yes, their starting pitching was grotesque, but you also saw the batters were pressing. The bullpen gets gassed. And the other team is smiling, going like, oh, you spent all that money, and take a look. Take a look at what you're doing. Not much, it appears. Not much. And those two Ohio teams, who, let's face it, are not the biggest spenders in the world, could knock off the two New York teams. The Reds could overtake the Mets, and there's a much larger than zero chance of that happening because of the pitching staff and because of the manager who's been there and done that, which I do think is important. And there's a much larger than zero chance that the Yankees could continue to stumble badly. They've been a bad team for more than a third of the season. Could they have a bad 40-game stretch? Especially if Fried is not the starting pitcher he was at the beginning of the year, and especially if Boone can't have his pitchers go more than 5 innings, even when they're pitching well, apparently. There's a much larger than zero chance that Ohio could have 2 playoff teams and New York could have 0. 0. That's not out of the question. 40 games, including several head-to-head between the Mets and Cincinnati. And don't listen to all of the, well, but the Yankees have an easy schedule down the stretch. They have the Orioles. They have the White Sox. You don't think the Orioles want to knock the Yankees off? The Orioles started this year thinking they had a chance to win another division title. And now they know they're going to be playing golf in just a few weeks. You don't think they would relish at the point where they could beat the Yankees and say, hey, tea time's in a few hours. But time to head west. I mentioned before that the Dodgers got swept by the nominal Los Angeles Angels. The Angels should be the California Angels. I'm sorry, everybody. They don't play in Los Angeles. They don't play in Los Angeles, the city. They don't play in Los Angeles, the county. They're the California Angels, but I digress. Now, I talked to my friend Chris, who's a huge Dodger fan. We've gone to Dodger games together. We're going to a Dodger game in a few weeks. And I said, wow. And I kind of wrote to him, I said, wow, the Angels just swept the Dodgers. And he said, yeah, but this is their World Series. Yeah, it is. And you're going to see teams get up for the games against the Dodgers, the Mets, and the Yankees. Now, one team that didn't get up for the big game were the San Francisco Giants, who just had their lunch money stolen by the San Diego Padres. And right now, as I'm recording this, the Los Angeles Dodgers are in second place. The magic number for the San Diego Padres to win the National League West, not a wild card, but win the division, is 41. 41. And the big showdown is happening this weekend, where the Padres are the first place team. The Padres are the one in the driver's seat. The Padres are the team that just has to match the Dodgers win for win. And they'll be the National League West champions. You are not hearing a lot of the Dodgers buy every championship, it's not fair argument going around right now, because there is also a much larger than zero chance that the Dodgers can be a wild card team, because with 40 games left, they are a wild card team. You just have to have the status, and did I mention quo? And the Padres, who are salivating at the idea of being the National League West champion, despite all the accolades, oh, we'll pick up Snow, we'll pick up this guy, we'll pick up that guy. Say, oh yeah? Tell you what if we beat you? What if we finish ahead of you? And then throw the Dodgers in the mix of a short playoff series. If they played a team like the Reds, and all of a sudden a Hunter Green or an Abbott or someone like that pitches well in game 1 against Los Angeles, suddenly you have the Dodgers' chances of, oh, is this going to be the greatest dynasty in the National League? They could be 2 and out. I think the first wild card series begins in late September. I may be wrong. They may not even make it to October. There's a larger than zero chance of that happening. And trust me, right now, you take a look at the way the Padres are playing, this is how they want to do it. They know they've got a lockdown bullpen. Much better bullpen than Los Angeles right now. You don't believe me? Watch the series I just watched where they couldn't shut down the Angels. So you have a team, when you have some of these teams that are chasing the big market clubs, and Milwaukee, by the way, Milwaukee is just a train. They may run the table. They may not lose another game this year. And I'm sure Brewers fans hope, hey, I hope you have one of those 12-game winning streaks in October instead of having another quick exit. But yeah, the Brewers are on another level right now. But when you have some of these teams, these smaller market teams that are eyeing for the big boys, San Diego eyeing for Los Angeles, the Reds eyeing for the Mets, Cleveland eyeing for the Yankees, you got to take a look at the fact that in a short sample size, 40 games, essentially it's a 40-game season for some of these teams. Who's going to pitch better? Who has less pressure on them? And who do you hand the car keys over? Do you trust Vogt over Aaron Boone in terms of his managerial skills of a bullpen? I know I would. Would I trust Francona and that starting rotation over everything happening in New York right now? I know I would. Do I trust Pivetta at all with San Diego and their lockdown bullpen with the Dodgers, whose starting pitcher very well could be the 15th caller on 570 AM? I think at this point, those big market teams that spent big in the offseason and had huge expectations are kind of the ones right now that I would consider to be the underdogs. Not in terms of being hard on their luck, but being the one that I wouldn't be basically putting my money on. So, I want to thank you for making Locked On MLB your first listen every day. For your second listen, check out Locked On MLB Game Night, every game, every night until a World Series champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night right here on the Locked On MLB feed on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Now let's do the trivia question. It's a California-based one. What pitcher threw a complete game victory to give the Angels their first ever franchise road playoff victory? The first time the Angels ever won a playoff game on the road. What pitcher threw the complete game victory? That's a trivia question. Put it right down here. And follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called now. And on Instagram, I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Talking about the Reds, the Guardians, the Padres, and a little bit about the Brewers and how they are the big old bullies taking on the lowly Dodgers, Mets, Cubs, and Yankees. This has been Locked On MLB. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.